it all started, like I said, I was, as a kid, very, not super religious family, but Christian family, went to church and everything. But around about the 60s, the late 60s, just before I went to college, a lot of my close relatives passed away. My grandmother died, I really loved her so much. And a couple of cousins got killed in the Vietnamese War. And other close friends and other relatives died within a period of 2 years. I'd say I had like maybe 10 close relatives die. And it really kind of, like, why? Some were sick, some were not sick, some died of accidents. A few of the people who died as a result of the Vietnamese War. Let's say not directly, but some died indirectly. A lot of people, when they come back from war, post-traumatic syndrome, they're just totally freaked out. They just can't relate to life anymore, and they just flip. So I had, people kill themselves and just from the war, and some people were just messed up when they came back. But I love these people very much, and they were very close to me, and they meant so much to me. And so I started, questioning, why we're here, what really happens when you die, and I started really thinking about that. And I started reading a lot on that, a lot of books I read about it, and just searching, and I just started praying and asking God, why? So like I don't know if I told you before, when I got to college, kind of shortening it a little bit, and when I got to college, it was the first time away from home, from a small little town into a big city by myself. And well, a couple of my friends went to the same college I did, but still I was just questioning about life. And boom, my first time really coming into a very anti-Christ, very anti-belief in God atmosphere. Because in college, like I said, my particular study was going to be biology, and I wanted to be a biochemist, and that was going to be my major. So first time being, bam, confronted with that evolution, a more non-Christian presentation of evolution, I might say, because in my town, everybody believed in God, everybody went to church, and even the biology teacher said, look, I got to teach you this stuff because it's in the school curriculum, but we believe in God, which, boom, with no problem. So it's kind of skimmed through all this evolution stuff in our biology class in high school. So anyway, there I was, boom, first possibility, like really, hey, am I really a result of a chemical reaction, or am I am I an animal, and there's no God, and what's the use of living? So I was really kind of messed up, but at the same time, I couldn't accept that stuff because of all the weird stuff happened to me as I was a kid, that when I was a kid, it just like, hey, I knew that the spirit world was real, and I just knew something was going on behind the scenes, and we're just not a result of a chemical reaction, I'm kind of putting it simply. Look, I'm a simple guy. I'm just telling you how I felt inside and what I've gone through. So look, I got so kind of at one point I got very depressed about all these things, and the war, and also, like I say, I've talked to you about race. I've had some really freaky things happen to me that were race related, and the black-white thing, because look, in my town, it's just basically black and white people. There's a few Native Americans in the area too, but it's basically blacks, whites, and a lot of freaky stuff happened. Just things that made me realize that it's just stupid. You know what I mean? It's like, so anyway, to that particular thing, we're back on this. So anyway, I was just very discouraged about life in general, and it was during the civil rights movement, and it was just so many things in my life were just overwhelming. So I was like, look, there's got to be something more than this, you know. So what happened, one week we were doing a study on different animals, and we were in the lab, and we were doing, we had our fluoroscopes, and we were studying small animals and how their vascular system works and how their neurological system works. And then we're just really, it was in that study, you know. So I'm looking at one day, so we have this fluoroscope. A fluoroscope helps you to see small tissues or animals, and how they function when they're alive. It's not a microscopic level, but more of a smaller, you can see, you know, little objects, but not as microscopically, right? So I'm looking at this animal that got cut open, and I'm like, wow, you know, it's like, hey, I'm looking at this thing, I'm going, man, this thing is perfect. You know, you can see the blood, the blood cells flowing through the blood veins, you know, the little cells, but they're kind of flat, you know, and it's like a tongue. Okay, they look like your tongue, you know, the white blood cells, and you have red blood cells. So I'm looking at these things tumbling through the blood veins, and I'm looking at the nervous system, and I'm going, you know what? Somebody sat down and figured this out. So I'm thinking in my mind, looking at this thing. And then I went, hey, this thing was designed, and it was just so awesome. Looking at this little creature, I just sat up in class and went, hey, somebody designed this thing. And everybody looks around me like I'm a complete idiot. Okay. So I'm like, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing in this? And I got up, and I went out of class. I said, I just can't, I can't go with this. This doesn't go with me, you know. I went to my dorm. I whipped out my Bible, and I started reading the Bible. And I started praying. And I said, I was like, Lord, you must be real, and there must be something more than this. I don't believe this evolution stuff. It's just, I can't handle it. You got to show me that you're real. I said, if you don't show me you're real, if you're not really there, then why live? I said, I can't handle this anymore, you know? And so all that day I was just praying and praying and just desperate. And I said, and finally, in late evening, I went up on the roof, and I'd been praying and asking and praying. And I said, you know what? I'm sick of this. I am sick of this. And I'm like, God, if you don't do anything, I'm out of here. And so I went way up on this roof that in my dorm. Oftentimes I would go up there and pray because it was quiet, away from the whole shebang that would happen in our dorm. So I was up there, and finally I said, okay, I've had it. And I wanted to die. So I go to the roof, and I get ready to jump off. I'm kind of shortening it for you. And I get ready to jump off, and I hear this voice, don't do it. Clear. It wasn't an audible voice this particular time. This wasn't audibly. But it's like, don't do it. And I was like, I stopped. I sat back down. I didn't jump off the edge. I was right at the edge, getting ready to jump off. And I said, just don't do it. So I sit down, and I'm crying, like bawling my eyes out. Oh God, I don't want to live. I'm sick of this. And all of a sudden, I'm crying like this. I open my eyes, and the sky parts. And there's this big, beautiful moon at this time. Just appeared to me. It was like, when I looked at it, I just heard this voice like, don't worry, you know. And I felt this peace come over me, right? So I go back to my dorm. Now, this particular weekend, when this all happened, a lot of the kids, some of the people in my dormitory, that was in my particular room, dorm room, they were home for the weekend, and I was in the dorm by myself that day, and that weekend. And so I went back to my room, and I got in bed, and I'm sitting in the bed up with the light on, and I'm reading the Bible, right? I started reading again, and okay, maybe it's not so bad, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm reading, And so I fall asleep. Now, I woke up. Now this was not a dream. I was awake. Now, you can debate that. You can say, oh, you're just making this up or whatever. It's your privilege. You can believe whatever you want to. But I was awake, right? I woke up and I'm still on my back, but I'm kind of sit up a little bit. I was sitting up a little bit. And I said, oh, I better go to the bathroom. So I get ready to get up out of bed, and I can't get up. I was paralyzed. I was laying on my back, and just so happened that my bed faced the room door. There was a dorm door, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around the room. I can't move. I'm paralyzed, and I'm looking at the door. Now, just about that time, this girl walks through the door. Now, okay, this is a black college, in North Carolina, St. Augustine, very nice college. People were very, nice faculty at that particular time. I don't know about now, but it was very nice. And this girl walks through the door. Okay, this is the angel kind of a thing. I don't know why it wasn't a black angel or an Indian angel or a Chinese angel, but this was a white angel, Caucasian. Blonde hair, blue eyes kind of thing. And she walks through the door, and I'm laying on the bed like this. And I'm like breathing heavy, but I can't move. I'm paralyzed. She comes over to the side of my bed, and it was my left side, and she looks down at me, and I'm looking up at her, like, oh my God, and I can't move. And she just strokes my arm. She's just stroking my arm. And she said, and she was looking right at my face, I'm looking up at her, and when I looked deep into her soul, like look into her eyes, she telepathically spoke to me, and she said, don't worry, everything is under control, and we're watching over you. And I'm like, looking up at her. I can't move. I can't talk, and I can't move my body or anything. But I just felt this peace it was just amazing, So it was an angel, whatever you want to call her, whatever, she was there. She didn't have wings. It was a person. And she just kept looking in my face and stroking my arm, saying, look, everything is under control. And I'm like, wow, looking at her. And so she turns. She starts walking toward the door. And I look, I'm looking at, I can still see the floor on the side. I can still, and my eyeballs, or whatever, I don't know, my eyeballs were able to move or whatever. I'm looking. And I could see that her feet weren't touching the ground. She was just like floating toward the door. So she floats to the door, and as she gets to the door, she goes through the door. So I'm still there, paralyzed. As soon as she went through the door, first my finger moved, like I could feel my pinky move. This is why I know I wasn't awake, because my pinky started moving. Then my hand started moving, and then my body went limp, and I got control of my body. I wasn't awake. I wasn't asleep. I was awake. I was not hallucinating. As I told you before, I wasn't into drinking. I never drank. I never took any kind of drugs. Nothing. Or maybe an aspirin or something like that. Or as a kid, or maybe I got a shot from a doctor, but that was just it. Now, the reason why I never got into drugs or drinking alcohol, not because so much religion, is because some of the people in my family were alcoholics. And I'm just being honest. People have people in their family who are alcoholics. And I said, if I live, I will never drink a drop in my life. So I never drank. I decided in myself that I didn't want to drink any kind of alcohol, and definitely sure didn't want to take drugs. And it wasn't my fear of going to hell or anything. I just saw the damage that it wrought in some of my relatives' lives. And I just said, never, never. So anyway, that's what happened to me. All right, so I'm going to continue. So when this girl walked out of my dorm, I was like, wow. I've seen freaky stuff before, but this was the most clearest. It wasn't a vision. I wasn't dreaming. She was actually in the room with me, and I was awake. No vision, no dreaming. Now, you can believe what you want to believe, but this happened to me. Okay? So,
things are really bad now, what can you say? It's just getting worse all the time, oh yeah. So many crazy things, it just blows your mind. Now let me tell you about it. I got a tip that'll help see you through. Listen to me, brother, here's what you gotta do. Gotta keep on smiling.